myself for a
No, no,
second.
no, 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 no. No need. We already started. We will be
Okay.
okay. Stream starting now. Okay. Now we're live. Let me just set some things up. And yeah, we're officially like live to chat. Hello everyone, and welcome to like the channel's very first how do you say that? Hello Kodokunasu. He types here as if he isn't actually participating in the stream. No, but I know what you're doing. But and
Watch time. Watch time have to.
contribute.
Yes, yes.
Okay. No, I understand and like thank you for that. But today we're going to be starting our very first like adults only, like non-safe for work stream, I guess. It's the first one I actually restricted to that public due to the like subject we're going to be talking about. I have the person that wrote the initial post right here with me, Kodokunasu. Uh, please like introduce yourself.
Um. Well. Mm, I am. Mm, mm, I don't know how to introduce myself.
Anyway,
I'm just random guy. I'm just random guy from the internet.
okay. Fisher says, I thought there would be more people here. Don't worry. People generally take a while to like attend the stream. And let's be real, like given that I restricted this stream to adults only, it's very likely that YouTube will share it a lot less to people. So these like numbers are normal, honestly. Outside of that, what else? Oh yeah, let's just get right into it. I'll start reading your post, and then I'll stop when I need to address something. You can also like tell me to stop if you want to address something in more detail. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Some time ago in a discussion I encountered, uh, some time ago in a discussion I encountered an auntie's like question slash argument I've seen in the past. I decided to write about it because I have seen it a few times, and I have seen what the pro lolicon side of the discussion have a problem with responding to it. Like the argument goes, would you leave your wait, I think I
I
have
I I'm I think it is not disposed.
god damn it. Fucking one
This is
sec.
not disposed. This is other post
Yes.
because I wrote two once.
Yes. Sorry.
This
I
is not
probably picked
disposed.
the wrong one. Uh,
Uh,
where is it?
yes, this is.
Okay, now
Mm,
now this should be the one. Sorry. God
y-
damn it, it's scuffed from the start. I wanted to open the discussion about a topic I consider important. In discussions with aunties who don't like cute and short anime female characters, so-called lolis, one of the most frequently used arguments is like you, he, she, they can't distinguish between fiction and reality. It is used very often and it appears in nearly every discourse about this topic. Now I have two problems with this approach. First is that entities actually, at least in most cases, can distinguish fiction and reality. The problem is that even if they know that something is fiction, it still bothers them. They still have a problem with like lollies and the people who like them, even if it's just fiction. I mean, it is a little bit of a like a strawman fallacy when you are saying like about distinguishing fiction and reality. In reality, you don't address their points. This is something I have to like talk about too, because like I said, obviously we have very different perspectives on this, But personally, I'm very much like some people described before, a curmudgeon, like a very grumpy old man in regards to this topic, in the sense that like I just don't see the point. Like I realized long ago that entities of various types are just not worth discussing. They're not worth like addressing because like they'll hide their point to make it sound more reasonable, you know? Uh, Stepping away from the lolicon example for a bit, like a lot of people will, in regards to fan service, right? They'll say, "Oh no, I don't dislike this like female character's costume just because it's bikini armor. I dislike it because it just looks so ridiculous, so unrealistic, you know." And like a lot of people try to argue that point in good faith, showing that, oh no, but everything else in the game is unrealistic. It's fantasy, and in the world of the fantasy makes sense, but they're missing the point in that the person's not really being honest. They don't dislike it for actually being unrealistic and impractical. They dislike it just because they don't like to see like sexy or sexualized woman. And so their arguments are kind of wasted on that person because they're not addressing the real point. But even if you address the real points, like at that point there is nothing to argue. Okay, you don't like it, like that doesn't have anything to do with me. Like you can have your own opinion, but it doesn't really, like it shouldn't really influence how the game is made. Like it's just not made for you. And so engaging like entities of various kinds in genuine discussion, genuine, honest, and well-meaning discussion is most of the time a fool's errand, because when you get to their actual point, there is nothing to discuss there. Like they won't be convinced no matter what, because it's not really a rational point. It's just me no likey. And at that point, like why even have a discussion? So I get what you're saying, but a lot of the times I don't like this approach of trying to understand uh, the other side as
Mm,
like
I mean
because
that I mean that the real point is that they have a problem with not that this fiction is bad on its own, but they have a problem with that they have hypothesis how this fiction affects reality by by their view.
see, yes, but my point is that like when you get to the focus, the kind of crux of their argument, there is nothing to really argue there, because they'll say, "Oh no, but I am like worried that this may lead people to uh do that stuff in real life." Oh, but like there are no studies that um there are no studies that like
Mhm.
show that this is a possibility, or like there are various cases uh that show that this isn't like necessarily the case, that like in fact most of the time this transition that you fear so much just doesn't happen. And the person can just rebut, "Oh, but I'm still scared, like it still looks suspicious, it's still even if there is like a sliver of chance, like I don't want to live in a world where I have to worry about that." And at that point, what is there to discuss? In most discussions with entities, when you get to the crux of their point, is just me no likey, so it shouldn't exist. And they hide it under like this veneer of like rationality. But when you actually
Mhm.
try to argue, like you see that there's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to talk about with them. There's nothing you can really say that will change their minds. That's why I actually stopped having these types of arguments, because I just realized that it's pointless. But again, this is just my perspective. It's what I think about this. But I do understand that you try to be more. positive, especially because you showed me that you had some positive experiences, that there are some people that can be convinced. Can I continue?
Mm, I think um, mm, mm, I think we can continue. We can just continue. Maybe later I will add something.
Okay. I don't remember if I made the same comment on in Ku's first post, but some people think that it doesn't end on fiction. They treat it almost the same as a porn addiction. Yeah, uh, sorry. That's one of the good things about this is that I don't have to limit my language in like any way. I can just say porn without having to like hide it with some bullshit language. Feels nice to like be more free in these types of streams. But yeah, we already addressed this, so I'll move on. They think that lollies normalize harmful behaviors and or develop problematic preferences. Now that I feel Now I feel that I have to explain some things to not be misunderstood. Antis are wrong, or rather, they are unable to prove their point. They are accusing fans of lolly of different things in terms of who they are and where their actions lead to. So if they don't have good evidence that their points are right, what they are doing is literally a false accusation. Yes, actually there is no scientific evidence that any content with lolly is harmful in any way on its own. I was searching for this and found nothing. There are only a few essay sources, and they are mainly only essays where the authors share their personal opinions and claim without evidence which supports them. So there is no evidence fans of lolly have in general problematic preferences. There's no evidence that content with lollies leads to people developing such preferences. There's no real evidence that content with lollies normalizes any harmful behaviors in real life. In light of these facts, the only ways for antis to look like the right ones is to convince everyone that their claims are obvious or self evident. But when you think about this is not obvious because we have a lot of moral panics about problematic fiction in the past, and in all or nearly all. If I don't know about something cases, to this day, there's no proof that, for example, brutal games normalize violence or people who like that are mentally ill. So we cannot assume it as default. The problem with this is that a lot of people like it's very difficult for a lot of people to see things from different perspectives, right? So, for example, the reason these arguments work is because to the people who aren't lollicones, they will wonder, oh, how could anyone like this without being like a pedo? Uh,
Mm,
and like to us lollicons we can like we understand how, like we understand the reasons, we can even explain it, put into words, but
well,
one
about
one second, one
topic
second,
of
let me finish. But to
okay.
them it's difficult to comprehend, like they are not in our perspective, so it's difficult for them to understand said perspective, you know. But anyway,
Mm,
one sec here. Molden GT 771, based and true, Skittles never stop losing, and Vagar, what the hell is going on? We're having a discussion about Lolicon. Also, welcome both of you to the stream. Assuming, yeah, welcome. But anyway, you were talking about something.
I think mm, the problem there is a problem with well their point in terms of how someone might like uh, lollies and don't be a pedo
Mm-hmm,
is something what can be addressed in many ways,
mm-hmm,
but mm, it's no matter how you explain this, no matter if you tell that. there is no evidence that there is even not that lolicons are pedos in general, but even there is no proof that among them is more PDFs than among any other group of people or general population. You can also point out that preferences for fiction are not in other examples also not determine real world preferences and can be, and even if something is similar to something in reality, it can have different nature.
Okay, let me put it in a way that maybe you'll be able to understand. Uh, sorry, that sounded so insulting. I really should have put that in better words. I apologize. But the point here is that there's what I like to call a rational understanding and an emotional understanding. Because, like, we can and do make those arguments, and a lot of like anti-lolicons have various times, even in some of the discussions you showed me that you had, conceded to those points. Like they concede to the rational arguments, but the emotional argument is like where we can't like transmit to them like that information, because to us it's obvious. Like we can look at a lolly and find it attractive, and we can look at a real kid and not find that kid attractive, right? But to them, they don't have that same perspective. They see both of them like in a very similar light. They see then like the fictional child, the real child, kind of like analog. They see them the same way. So a person, so they can't understand. No, how can people see this and this differently when I see it the same way? No, if a person likes this, they must also like this the same way. And you might wonder, okay, so, but why? Why can, after all these rational arguments, can they still not understand like this? And a good example I like to point out is, imagine trying to describe to like a woman what it's like to be kicked in the balls, right? You can describe it in a lot of detail. You can like make you can make even analogs to different types of pain that she has experienced, but a woman will never really know emotionally what it's like to be kicked in the balls, just like a guy will never know what it's like to have a period. And it's that kind of thing. Like rationally we can explain like the logic behind our attraction, and even a lot of antis, not just normies, antis will concede to that. But since they can understand it emotionally, like that limits the extent to which they can be comprehensive. Like it's only the entities that can fully like give up on this emotional perspective and like consider only like the rational arguments that can have their opinions changed. And most people can't separate like things like that. Most people can't separate the rational from the emotional. Like it's not just a anti thing, it's a people thing, right? And in there lies the problem. That's more or less what I'm trying to say, and that's where the problem lies, I think.
Mm, I think, well, we can't, well, anyone who like something cannot explain how it works. That, for example, uh, he or she like something in fiction and don't like something more or less similar in reality.
Hmm.
But what we can do is show the differences between those things. Mm.
I think you
It's not. It's
continue. No,
not like. Mm, well,
no, you can
could
continue. I'm
you?
sorry. I'm sorry.
It's not like that. It's not like that. Mm, it's strong. It. The similarity between lollies and kids depends on particular case, and it also not like that all lollicoms are like all lollies. Mm, but there is also mm, it's not like if in no and it's not like that any lolly is a kid but just fictional. It's not like that.
Mhm.
Mm,
No, I think I get what you mean, and that is an interesting way to put the conversation. And a point that you get into that I actually agree with, that we shouldn't argue on like that basis, because like on the that basis on under those arguments, like it actually is very difficult to make ourselves understood. So better approach would be to say, or to convince the person to themselves disassociate kids with lollies, to prove that they're not like just fictional kids, but like completely different entities from a kid in general. That approach, I agree with you, and you're going to make this point. uh like it works a lot better, and you can see that by like what the furries were able to achieve, right? You have something to add?
no, no, yeah, I was just confused why you stopped talking.
Okay, sorry. I'll continue reading then.
Mm.
Uh, that's why it's important to remind about that over and over again. It's important to ask then for proof than to talk about the distinction between fiction and reality. That is true. I agree. Because it even isn't their point, but from some people tell about earlier facts quite rare. It is important to demand the proof for their claims, and if they say this is obvious, then the thing which should be said is, if this is obvious, then you shouldn't have a problem to prove it. Please show the evidence or proof. And that's very good, because like you're doing the rational thing in this discussion, because you, like I said, it's very difficult to, and next to impossible, to actually convince an anti. But when doing this in a discussion, you can prove to the people around you within the discussion that the anti is essentially crazy. It's irrational, right? And while you may not be able to convince the anti, through that discussion, you can uh, harm the validity of their points, and at least convince the people, the neutral people around, to be on your side more than them. That is actually a very like good way to use discussions, not to convince the other person, but to convince like the neutral party of your points, by showing how absurd the other people's points are. Hello, Teto Teto, welcome to the stream. So yes, this is a great point actually. I came mid argument. Not really. We are just at the start. Like you didn't lose much, honestly.
I think that it can be disappointing when while we discuss with some anti and we can't convince them, even if we have in for simplification we have better arguments than them,
Mhm.
but and it can be really disappointing, but we can not but when we discuss around in the internet, we are not the only ones who see this, um, and we we can just don't see, um, We just don't see the people who were really convinced by our arguments.
Hmm. It's like the kind of thing, the silent majority or something like that, right?
Yes, yes. And I strongly believe that people who are strong antis, who are impossible to convince, are strong minority. Just like most extremists about around the internet.
Okay. Let's address
Mm.
a comment that a Fisher made because very interesting. What if they only consume lolicon content? Well, that doesn't work for entities in regards to that argument because they would like just use the argument if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, and walks like a duck, it is a duck. And like to
Mm.
that, a good counter to that argument actually that I wanted to talk about is like that painting, like that says this is not a pipe, and that painting makes a great point. This is not a pipe; it's a painting of a pipe. So yes, if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, and walks like a duck, it's a duck. But the duck, in this sense, is not kids. The lolly, like because of her various differences to real life kids, especially because of the differences that are more easy to prove because they're not related to then as emotionally as you talk about uh, after, like the differences between anime characters and people in general, you can use one to kind of say, oh, yes, if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, and walks like a duck, it's a duck. This sounds like an anime girl, like looks like an anime girl, and walks like an anime girl. So it's an anime girl. Like it's very, it's not easy so much that a lot of people don't use this method, but there are ways to go against even that argument, you know. So it is not
Yes,
a
my take on this duck argument is of course we can agree that if it looks like a duck, sounds a duck, and walks like a duck, it's a duck. But actually, it doesn't look like a duck, doesn't sound like a duck, and doesn't walks like a duck. So it's not a duck.
uh like that was essentially what I was saying. Like you need to convince them that to apply this argument, but to instead of just negating it, to associate with something else, you know. Because just negating it just becomes a battle of it is, it isn't, it is, it isn't. So when you say it is, but not what you're thinking of, I think that's a more solid point, you know?
Yes,
That's
yes. Well, the differences should be shown. Yes. Mm.
just 1 second, I will uh like continue. Also, fucking this fucking glazer, I swear. Anyway, I will address all that later. Sorry, I'm in two discussions at the same time. I'm like arguing with a fucking Arknight's Glazer while at the same time in this discussion. Anyway. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Okay. So I'm already here. The second problem with fiction, the second problem with fiction and reality distinction argument is that saying, for example, just they're not real and things like that is correct, but it doesn't have any like it's correct, it doesn't have any negative logical implications, but slightly suggests, and many people will imply that even if they're fictional, you treat them as a representation of something real. lollies actually don't have any real life equivalent. It may sound dumb or shocking, but that's the case. We don't have any being in reality which looks like lollies and which acts like lollies. Many aunties say that they look like kids or act like kids, but in my opinion, that's false. And again, it's very easy to use their own arguments against them because a lot of aunties that are against fan service, for example, they will say, "Oh, no woman behaves like that. This is not a real woman. Oh, so this is not a real child." So it's again, your arguments are very interesting in the way that they can be used in combination with anti's arguments to turn their own arguments against them. It's just very cool in that sense.
Yes, yes.
Can I continue?
Yes, it is. Yes, you can continue.
Okay. What if they add this argument for characters who acted violently? I don't get your point there, Teto. I'll just continue. First, the simpler matter is, was I here? Okay. First, the simpler matter is behavior. For me, it is outside of question that there is no kid in real life which acts like a lolly and vice versa. Yes. Second, the matter of looks, especially in terms of face. Anime characters don't resemble real life Homo sapiens at all. If you look at faces of different kinds of anime characters and faces of people, both adults and children, uh, and think about this a little bit, you will realize that faces of kids from our real world actually are more similar to faces of adults from real world than to any, or at least most, types of anime style characters. Just solely for the face makes lollies visually different. It's not just the face. Like, if you actually compare like anime bodies to like the bodies of people in real life, you will see how exaggerated they are. Even with styles that try to emulate more realistic proportions, you can see that the proportions of anime characters are very stylized in general, not just the face. And so this is an argument that I would like expand to the whole like the anime character as a whole, not just the face. Obviously, the face is the easiest to prove, but and you talk about this later. I just saw, god damn it. But yeah, this can be applied to everything. In terms of body proportions, thing it's more complicated because lollies are a surprisingly divergent class of characters in this matter. There are lots of lollies which absolutely don't resemble children from our world or like people at all. Like that, obviously there are characters, there are people who can get the bodies of anime characters, but in general it's very rare for people to have those proportions because they're very exaggerated. Heck, some proportions are so exaggerated that there are no people that have them. So again, I do not think that this is like that complicated, but let's continue. For example, because of the presence of strongly developed feminine body features, even in cases without that, proportions are different from like kids in real life in this way or another way. The matter of do lollies look like kids or not can be handled in other way. It is something that maybe should be studied, but I strongly believe that every non-schizophrenic human being, a good one, with working eyes can distinguish photos of kids from drawings of lollies with 100% accuracy. And this is very good, a very good argument because most laws that people try to use against like lollies say no, the image has to be indistinguishable from like a human kid's. And yeah, most people, like even most antis, will be able to do this. They will acknowledge no, this picture is very different from this picture, no matter like how dishonest they are about it. If you press them hard enough, they will say, oh, okay, okay, I can differentiate, like you got me. And so the law doesn't apply because it shouldn't apply. And so again, that's a fantastic argument too. Okay. I see no possibility to conflate them. They are that much different that no matter which child and which lolly you take for comparison, you're just unable to not distinguish which is which. If they are that much different, it's impossible to confuse them, assuming that our brains treat them as the same by default is unreasonable. Uh,
Mm.
uh, Wait, God damn it! Why did they Fisher retract their messages? I was just about to read that. Whatever. Let's continue. Now let's stop here and think about how we treat fictional characters in brutal games, even if they look.
Uh, Wait, can we stop for a second?
Okay.
Because the problem with discussing about proportions, the problem is that when you discuss with aunties, mm, they typically mm, they typically show examples of not not strongly exaggerated one. They often show the smallest one, and the problem is that if we speak about Lolisio in general,
Mhm.
in practice, often every anime character which is really small mm, can be considered as a loli or shota if it is part if this character is put in arrow context. So mm, the problem is that when I was arguing with some aunties, they started to show uh, extremely small anime characters or arts with them, and it makes the discussion about body proportions a little bit harder.
Not really. Let
Mm,
me like kind of help you with those discussions. First off, like when they show those extremely small characters, you can show a more like that more photorealistic because of those like proportion charts, right? There are more realistic drawings of like toddlers and etc, and you can like say, oh, look at, for example, their hip to body ratio, like even in the smallest lollies. Look, for example, at how cylindrical their arms and legs look. Look at the exaggerated like femininity and grace of the fingers. Look again and how the neck and the body are connected. Like it may like seem difficult at first. It may be like, because I will participate in those discussions too, and so like it can be difficult at first glance to like go against that, and like it can serve as a gotcha. But if you focus on the actual proportions, if you look deeper, you can disprove that, you know. Things like their skin too, you can point out how the skin like is very unrealistic and doesn't at all look like human skin, you know. And again, there are just many differences between anime characters and like real characters, no, and real people in general, that you can use and apply to the lolly argument, you know. So again, I do understand that that argument can seem intimidating. I'm just telling you that there are ways around that too, like to
I
help
know
you.
that there are ways, but mm, it makes discussion often when it is just by the way this, but when they are show some just mm, some characters mm, or or just skip this. I get your point.
Okay, okay.
Mm.
You got destroyed by my facts and logic.
Yes, 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 of course. Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that joke. Anyway, but people are making some good arguments in the comments, so I'll be reading that before continuing. It's okay to glaze a criminal as long as they don't exist, aka not a real criminal. But it's okay to glaze real criminals, of course not. Just like it's okay to go to lollies, but not children, because lollies are a fictional concept. Doesn't matter how much the author tries to be realistic, they're still not a human. Just like it doesn't matter how cruel and sadistic or realistic an author makes a character, the character is still and will never be uh, a real criminal, because it's a fictional concept, regardless of realism. Uh, Plus an idealistic reality that doesn't affect reality per se. That's actually a good argument to use against some of the more like suspicious looking like examples of lollies, for example, like that girl in Pragmata. So yes, that is a pretty good argument on Teto's part. But anyway, Efisha says, Teto, you'd be surprised. There are people who glaze real criminals, more specifically fall in love with them. That's not their point, Efisha. Like, obviously, there are disgusting people who would do these types of things, but like most people can understand that like it's okay to simp for a villainous character, while it's not okay for to simp for like an actual criminal. Like obviously that happens. There are people who unfortunately do that, but in general, most people can understand that those people are sick in the head. So that's more or less Teto's point. But yeah, I learning about this was just God, was it disappointing. Like it just reminds me of that case of the like real life yandere, or like all the like girls that constantly fall over like actual serial killers. It's just, why are people like this? Anyway, but you get the point. Let's continue. Also, people talk about lollies indulging people to be predators because of the fiction affects reality, and people usually point a lot of examples in favor to that argument, but I have debunks. All the examples that they point are to very like minor things, like, oh, you think that like rabbits like carrots because of cartoons, and a good, but it's never like something serious. It's never uh like, oh, we have established a good link between like people who murder someone in video games, and that's a gateway drug into them being serial killers. Like, for more silly shit, this argument can work, but for more like serious stuff, it doesn't.
Mm,
You know.
about this argument with rabbits and carrots,
Hmm.
I heard different argument, but with cats and milk. That someone claimed that people thinks that cats like milk because of cartoons. But first, how do you know that? Show me the proof. Second is that people thought that cats like milk uh, extremely long time before cartoons were invented. Mm,
Hmm. That's
mm,
why I didn't use that argument, because I'm trying to give their arguments as much strength as possible. But with the whole cats thing, and with a lot of like their arguments, you can just say, no, people thought that before the cartoons, because guess what? That is just a thing that is real. You should go outside more. Anyway, um, what was I going to say? What was I going to say? Oh yeah. And the reason that more silly shit like this, like, can affect our perception, while more important stuff does not, is simply because of a thing I like to call deterrence. Like, for example, uh, how much do you think a heavy sword, like a heavy two-handed medieval sword, weighs? Just like guess right now for me.
mm.
Kodokunas?
Yes, yes.
That was a question to you. Like, how much do you think a two-handed medieval sword weighs? Like, how heavy do you think it is?
Sorry, but I don't understand.
Okay.
I know I know what medieval sword is, but I don't understand the question.
Okay, so how many kilos do you think a medieval sword weighs? Like, how heavy do you think a medieval, like, two-handed sword is?
Well, I know that heaviest sword were up to 4 kilograms but I know this because I read about this topic.
Damn it, you read about it, so like I can't do the trick. But Prin like said something that I can use. Uh, isn't it like 10 kilograms? No, like even the heaviest swords, like Kodokunasu was saying, weighed at most 4 kilograms. Like the heavy like swords weigh 4 kilograms, and most of them weighed 3 kilograms. Like this idea that like great swords were the super heavy things that most people couldn't even lift, it's entirely from fiction. And why do a lot of people who aren't familiar with the topic like can think that, can have their reality affected? It's because like it doesn't matter to them. Most people will never swing around a sword. Most people will never see a knight in their life. So like this is information that doesn't matter. So they can, so that's why fiction affects reality in that case, because there's nothing in reality to like go against that in a way that will matter to them. Like imagine if I went my entire life thinking that like two-handed like heavy medieval swords weighed like 20 kilograms. Like I could die uh like believing that, and it would wouldn't affect my life in any way. That's why fiction can affect it, because it's that insignificant to my practical life. But why can't fiction convince me that like murder is fun, for example, like in the example of GTA, or uh like in the example of how do I say this, and the example of something like Postal or Manhunt? That's because I have contact with reality. I been taught, and just because of my human uh like empathy, right? I know that murder is wrong. I know that hurting people is wrong. And so the influence of fiction is too small, it's too diminished to really like affect me in such a way because of that deterrent, because this is some information that's important to me, this is some information that's practical, that's like I confront every day. And so that's why the relatively minor influence of fiction doesn't like do much, you know. And the same
Yes,
thing,
yes.
and the same thing with lolly too. Like the reason that I can like be affected by fiction and go my entire life thinking that like the medieval knight swords are like these incredibly unwieldy things that can weigh like 20 kilograms. Like, well, I can go my whole life believing that like without deterrent, without my life being affected like too heavily by that, like it can't convince me that, oh, so because I enjoy this in fiction then it must be even better in real life. No, it doesn't have that influence, because I know that like children can consent. Like as much as I see that in fiction, even if I see that being portrayed positively, being romanticized as they say, like the influences, and especially the strong influences of reality, prevent me from being affected by this, you know? Because one thing that antis do not understand is that yes, fiction does have an effect, but that effect is so minor compared to like the influences of reality, that if we have fiction like completely romanticizing it, like showing a relationship between a 30-year-old and a 10-year-old and showing it as the best thing ever, like that will still not convince either me or most people that that's okay in real life, because like the influences of real life are that much stronger and go against that. So as long as those influences are there, like I can enjoy that fiction as much as I want, and that fiction can be like as exaggerated and romanticized as it wants, and it will not convince me unless I don't have that influence of reality, unless I am a pedophile or a serial killer already. You know, exactly because like in that argument of fiction affects your perception of reality, yes, but not to like nowhere near the same extent that reality affects your perception
Mm,
of reality,
Fiction
you know.
can affect your perception of reality if you only if you don't have mm, more authoritative or substantive sources of knowledge about some topic.
Exactly,
Mm,
you put it
It doesn't.
perfectly. Yes, yes.
Mm, Yes, yes.
Okay, now I'm going to continue reading the comments because people have been arguing a lot and it's very interesting, and then I'll get to the rest of the document. Efficient, yes, there are, but they are not normal or sane people. I'm talking about normal and sane people. I think their example always points to unstable people who can distinguish fact from fiction. Welcome to the string Prin. Welcome to the string Genérico Jerônimo. And okay, isn't it 10 kilograms? No. I already talked about this. But the thing is, bunnies liking carrots is not a fictional concept. You don't need drawings to know that. You could literally go outside or watch the Discovery Channel about nature. So, like, even that argument doesn't work. So, we debunk two of their arguments and show that no, people think that because it is an actual real thing. But anyway. Sorry for being out of context, but it's always funny how they try to connect video games to violence, but soccer that has an actual link to spikes in violence is never talked about because like we can never like tackle their things because it doesn't like have an obvious connection. You know, you actually need to dig deep into it, and like yes, it is a good argument. Like sports, like do have a really easy to prove link to real life violence, but obviously you can't like prohibit the stuff they like. That would be going too far, man. How can you, how could you even imply that? But anyway, for bunnies,
Mm.
carrots are like candy. Sorry again, but what do you mean most? Who the heck is going to see an actual knight nowadays? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like uh, okay. Because like it's not most. It's like like every people. Like no one is going to see a knight nowadays. It's not most. It's no one is going to do that. Okay, I get your point. I knew that thanks to some channels on TV and also having a pet bunny at the time. So feeding them only the carrots is the same way as only feeding children with candy. So a bad idea. Yeah, there are knight slash medieval fairs. Actually, fiction can't affect reality. Everything a human does is based on thoughts. Those thoughts become emotions, and those emotions become action. Nothing outside causes emotion. What we think causes emotion, for example, if you wave at someone and they ignore you, how would you react? It depends on your thoughts. The act of ignoring per se doesn't affect you personally. Okay, I'm going to like let you finish your argument because clearly you still have more to add before we before I discuss it. Yeah, but that's like cosplay. Also, sorry, we are going way too much out of context. Okay, they're talking about the knights. And Mass 477 is on the comments here. Welcome to the stream. Fiction affecting reality only happens when the person's an airhead or sick in the head. People who actually do research and not are not children would not be affected by fiction. Yes, you are completely correct there, at least in the context that we're talking about. But yeah, with that done, let's continue to the arguments here. Now, let's stop and think about how we treat fictional characters in brutal games. Even if they look like photorealistic human beings, we don't treat them just as human, but fictional. We treat them as completely abstract beings, fabricated for the purpose to be, example, enemies in an FPS game or an opponent in Mortal Kombat. We don't treat them like we treat human beings, no matter how much they resemble them. Even if they are actual face scans of people in real life, we still don't. So your point is completely reinforced even more there. But anyway, they are just fictional beings created for the purpose of a particular type of entertainment. Just because we like shooting fictional characters in FPSs doesn't mean that we want to do that in real life. And just because we like fatalities doesn't mean that we want to do a fatality to a real person. In terms of both aspects, that we don't want to do this because of consequences and because we even don't have such a desire. We simply don't have that desire in real life to harm people, even if we like to do massacres in games. What is important to note is that brutal movies and games characters are have realistic proportions and sometimes have photorealistic shading. Also, for examples, in games like Skyrim, NPCs are portrayed as average people in society. Still, you can rob them and end their existence, and players often do this just for fun, or somehow people are able to not worry too much and understand that fictional characters are not real life beings. God damn it, sorry.
What happened?
Sorry, 1 second. You can rob them in existence player, okay, just for fun, and understand that fictional characters are not any real life beings, and because of that, people don't treat them as such. And the same thing is with lollies. So the next thing which should be done is telling about that lollies are simply not kids. First is because they objectively aren't. They're not really similar, and because in their heads they are not treated as any sort of analogy or representation. They are just different beings from different planes, existing for different purposes and with much different look and behavior traits. Sorry that it was this was long, but I was unable to compress it shorter while keeping all the details I wanted to show. Now I want to see your opinions. Do you agree or not? Why? Maybe some related thoughts which should be discussed. Okay. Do you have something to add, or can I get you like some of the responses to your post? Kodokunasu?
Yes, what?
Do you want to add something to what I've already like covered, or should I go to like some of the responses you got to that initial post?
Mm, there was something I wanted to tell.
Hmm.
Uh, mm, mm, I think what was told, what I think for now I have nothing to add.
Okay, so let's continue to this, and very off topic, but like I just saw like a video by was a dude called, like, what was his name again? False ID, saying like an important announcement. I'm done. Essentially, he is announcing that he's quitting his YouTube channel, that he's not talking about drama anymore, etc. But like this dude hasn't made a video, I think, in a couple of years, so that announcement is a bit too late, buddy. But anyway, moving on. If you want to understand what I'm talking about, is what my psychologist taught me when talking about fiction or real life episodes. If you want to learn more in deep research, the ABC methods. Okay, I'm going to try this to like this, like a list of ideas,
Mm.
and I'll continue. Okay. Genericus comment. You nailed the main point already. The thing with normies is not that they can't get it, is that they don't want to. That comes from the whole us versus them mindset. People like having an enemy, something to point at and hate. It doesn't really matter what it is. And you responded, "Thanks for the response. I see your point, which is not like all antis normies are impossible to convince to your point, especially the normies. The antis are you're very unlikely to convince like an anti, but normies, like I said, the more neutral party, you have a better chance." Okay. In some cases, it might be impossible to convince some particular people, but many people are still able to reason and be convinced, especially in terms of people who approve anti's points because of conformism, while are in fact uh, un- undecided. It's only my intuition, but I think most normies are like this. Even if some people are impossible to convince through discussion with them, we can show to the outside world that they are wrong and their unchangeable attitude is meaningless to them. Is meaningless then. Yes, I do agree with that. I do think, especially that last point, is a much better use of discussion. Not to address the person that you're like actually talking about, but actually showing them has very unreasonable to the more neutral party. I think that's a much more useful use of your time. Yeah, yeah. Okay, Sun's comment. Apologies for my long response. If there's anything unclear or confusing, just tell me and I'll explain or reword it. In theory, I agree with those points. It is true that the real point of disagreement lies in whether the fictional content is harmful, rather than whether it is actually real. However, the problem is that discussions are not waged on a battlefield of real principles or fact, or even real disagreements. It's largely something abstract and vague, like the emotions of a mob, powered by mere aesthetics of the use language. Mhm. As an example, when someone posts a risque picture of Flandre to the Toho subreddit, English forum full of normies, it will often trigger a response from antis in the form of a comment, "Isn't that literally a child?" Kodokunasu may be right. This anti is not truly a schizophrenic who mistakes the drawing of Flandre for a real human. The true position is probably that this picture of Flandre, while fictional, is problematic due to allegedly representing deviant sexual desires. However, that isn't the phrase they actually use. They do not make comments like, "While I understand this picture is a fictional anime 495-year vampire, I take issue with its sexualized nature despite its young appearance." They just say that's literally a child. The reason they say this is because of what I said earlier. Discussion is a battlefield of emotion, not of fact. Most people passing by wouldn't react much if they read the exact argument, "There's a fictional drawing I take issue with." But they have an intense emotional reaction towards like literal child or minor, despite being disingenuous. Literal child, minor, pedophile, prison, jail. These are powerful words which grab attention and rally the mob mentality. These words are used deliberately as social weapons by antis, despite the antis being aware they're not really accurate. And that is true. Like we've been discussing how to get around the like dishonest bullshit, but yes, like a big reason why they use this is because they're not ignorant. They are actually malicious. They don't like it, but they can't just say they don't like it, because if they did, most people like Kodokunasu said wouldn't like care about it. So they have to like relate it. They have to make it an actual problem because they are disingenuously trying to get the things that they don't like actually banned for people to do something about them, so they don't have to see it anymore. So yes, Sun has a really good point here, but again, there are ways to go around that and to not fall for their bullshit, to like go against this tactic of theirs. But anyways, okay. Nobody wants to be the guy who agrees with the pedophile. Nobody wants to be the voice who challenges those emotional appeals, because they will then appear to be a disgusting deviant themselves, regardless of fact. In other words, internet discussion and really all political warfare is hardly different from what two gorillas would engage in to see who is the leader. It's not really a matter of who is factually correct, it's a matter of who is the most charismatic at the moment. Yeah, because humans are unfortunately way more emotional beings than we would like to admit. In that sense, the practice of saying literal child and pedophile to a picture of Flandre is honestly a very optimized strategy from the anti's point of view. If I was Dan and my goal was to win the war, I can't think of better words to make my opponent look as bad as possible. It's also why like people generally use laws to censor the internet. They frame it as like, oh, we're just trying to make child protection laws. Exactly because anyone who challenges those, they can just point out, so are you against protecting children? And most people around them won't want to be the guy that even challenged that point. And that's like why it works. So that can be applied to a
I,
lot of things.
can we stop a second for a
Okay.
second? I think the argument, the argument with about those child protection laws is not that hard to it's not that hard to deflect than it seems for the first thought. I think the instant response to are you against protecting children is that it's completely not the point. It's just that those laws don't protect children, and then we can show that they don't protect them in any way. Mm.
No, but that's kind of the point. Like, obviously, there are ways to go against that argument. Heck, there are ways, like we were discussing, to go against the like whole anti-lolly argument. But like, that is their intention while using it, you know. It's not that there isn't any way to go against these arguments. Is that a lot of people will be unwilling to go against these arguments, especially if they're on like the neutral side, exactly because how emotionally charged and how like the optics of the situation work, you know. That's why they use those arguments. That's the point. Anyway, I can't think of better words to make my opponent look as bad as possible, redirecting the average person's intense hatred of these crimes toward a target of my choosing. Though, of course, it's a thoughtlessly dangerous weapon to use, like throwing a grenade at another kid during a snowball fight. But if you have no morals, the grenade is way more effective in a snowball fight than a snowball. The effect of these guerrilla arguments extend far beyond the scope of the argument itself. For example, antis using literal child and pedophile so much over the years has diluted and normalized these terms. On one hand, it's helped actual criminals quite a lot because of the boy who cried wolf effect. Anytime you see someone call a figure a pedophile online nowadays, they get instinct is to question whether it's a real criminal or just drawings. Bizarrely, I think that the dilution of the term is actually making it weaker. It has an argumentative weapon against drawings, like a weapon that rusts over time from overuse, since the emotional response to these words is not as strong anymore due to being desensitized to it. And yeah, you can see that a lot nowadays with how, like, for example, Epstein or Didi are treated. Like, obviously, people still have very negative responses to, like, pedophilia and those criminals in general, but you can see more and more people like not taking it seriously or taking it more as a joke that all of their like leaders and institutions are involved in all this crap. Exactly because of this, of how much that word is thrown around, people have stopped taking it seriously. They see it as something funny, as a meme. Like, it's not to the point where it's completely lost its strength yet, but unfortunately, I think we are heading to that direction, and this is a very scary future. But moving on. You can see this in other times in history that guerrilla style arguments have huge echoing effects, such as in 1940s America. The Ku Klux Klan was very popular. If you don't know, it was a white supremacist domestic terrorist organization which engaged in lynchings. A Superman radio show called Clan of the Fiery Cross depicted the Klan members as silly idiots, dressed in costumes and using code words. which basically ended up killing this organization by ruining its public image. Ultimately, it wasn't a factual argument against their actions which defeated the Klan, it was name calling, pure appeals to emotion. The silly code words in the show weren't even real ones actually used by the Klan in real life. And it has, and like while that this tactic works, it has the problem of the whole like you said of the argument losing its strength, because you can see that nowadays, like that we use people use words like white supremacist or like racist, and like represent their enemies in like the most ridiculous ways possible, and in turn this makes people like stop taking those arguments seriously because they see how much people are overusing it and how much of a joke people are making about it, that they think, oh, so the racists and the white supremacists are no big deal, right? They're just a bunch of idiots, and underestimate their actual threat while also not treating the arguments like as seriously as they should, because they're like, oh, there are white supremacists. So what? They drank milk, right? Because that's a thing that people try to make a thing. And so, like, as seen here, that argument can work, like it does work, but it can have some nasty consequences, which is why we must go against it, you know? But anyway, this is just the reality of political warfare. You can argue that we should all argue in good faith, we should have principles, but that doesn't win, whether or not you are arguing for a just cause. That's why I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to put away the you can't distinguish fiction from reality phrase. True, if it's really a civilized discussion of facts and studies, you may be right, but I think most discussions are guerrilla style, especially when the goal is to sway an audience of people. There's no need to lose on purpose. You can't distinguish fiction from reality isn't nearly as powerful a phrase as literal child PDF, but has decent effectiveness in highlighting the illogical and thoughtless nature of these entities from an emotional standpoint. With any luck, eventually people will associate the anti position with a crazy person, someone who can't distinguish fact from fiction. Similarly, think the comparison to violent media, something which the average person regularly enjoys, is also promising. Nobody wants their violent video games and movies to be taken away, so it's effective to point out that the same philosophy which condemns lollicons would also condemn violent media. Again, I get Sun's points, but again, it's so like he said, it's like using a grenade to fight again to win a snowball fight. And sure, like obviously, like when the enemy is being like dishonest, it's very difficult to like be the hero and be the honest person that goes against that and remains true to their morals despite everything. But if we use those tactics, we should be aware of their consequences and what this can do in the future, because of what it has done, like throughout history. Like I do get where he's coming from, but I really need to think. But I really think we should be careful with this like strategy, because of how much harm it can cause. Anyway, uh, anyways, this was a long rambling, so sorry if it's messy and repetitive. Note, it's not really. Speaking of which, hello, son. Welcome to the stream. It's not really accurate to say that the clan was killed by the Superman radio show. Probably economic factors, Great Depression, and countless other organizations waging campaigns against it were mainly responsible. But the radio show had a noticeable effect, which is the crux of my usage of it as an example. Is that me on stage? Dan, yes it is. But should I read the like response you already posted, or do you want to add something, Kodokunasu?
For now, I have nothing to add.
Yes, it's official art. Heck, since like a lot of it is being covered by the text, I'll show you the other part of it. Like, let's switch a bit. And now let's continue. Uh, Kodokunasu's response. First, you have nothing to apologize for. I'm glad for your response. Besides that, my post is as long and my English is not perfect, so don't worry about it at all. I see your point. Generally, I could summarize your position as online discussions are often slash mostly more about uh, emotional arguments than any substantial scientific weight of the arguments. Antis make strong emotional claims because it has bigger impact. Also, there is also an aspect of watering down words like pedophile, minor, etc. Also, the problem of the boy who cried wolf effect, which should be addressed, but I skipped this matter here because it's outside the scope of this discussion. God, I'm going to have to think about this later. Because of this, we also have to do so. Yes, I also see sometimes antis who see fictional characters and say looks like a literal child. And if they use this particular choice of words or other one with similar implications, I consider it even as reasonable to point out if I consider it even as reasonable to point out it. Because if someone says literal child, it suggests that it's indistinguishable from a real world child. If he, she really thinks this way, it is a little bit worrying in terms of how he, she perceives reality. But we know that probably is just emotionally strong choice of words to make bigger emotional impact. But I see it as worth it to point out if they say literal child when we do this because they see uh, to be a little bit over emotional or even manipulative because they use language hyperbolized to the point it misses the objective reality. Generally, after your response, I could argue that we don't necessarily should put discussed arguments out completely from use. Yes, a huge problem that some movements have, besides the other one I mentioned, when relying on emotional arguments, is that while like it's slow, the more you overuse emotional arguments and the more the other side uses rational arguments, the more you're going to start cracking that like uh the armor of theirs. The more people like start to perceive them as being like overly emotional idiots, and your side, who's mostly trying to argue like rationally, will be perceived in a better light. So it's definitely something of like short term and long term. Like being rational despite everything may be like more difficult short term, but it can lead to like better like long-term results, you know. But anyway, now I agree that emotions can dominate debates and discussions. I even could completely agree that in oral real-time discussions it's like is without goodwill and culture from the partner opponent, emotional narratives dominate. But I disagree in a general case, especially in discussions where the communications medium gives you an amount of space and time to express your thoughts freely. Emotional narration without support in evidence is a strong giant but on clay legs, can backfire horribly if the opposing side of the discussion spots it and points it out. We already like said how we can do exactly that before, so I won't repeat myself. And yes, this is a fantastic counter argument to by Kodokunasu. For example, if they make the claim, for example, that lollicones normalize XYZ, and we are able to show that this is a false accusation based on emotional, irrational, and baseless reasoning, they are messed up in two areas. First is that their claim is now considered as emotional, irrational shit, and they are unable to refute it in the language of facts. Second, they lose the impression of being rational people in this discussion from the point of view of observers who are undecided and are able to reason. In the world, there are a lot of people who are able to reason, but many, if not most of them, do not engage in internet discussions, but sometimes see them and shape their view on the topic on the base of this. True, we already went through that as well. In addition to that, opposite view can be now considered as the rational one, and the opposite side is like the irrational one in this discussion from the POV of the outside observers, if they will show their points as reasonable enough and arguments that well in the language of facts. Uh, 1 second. Before I continue, I need to do something. I'll go back to that in a bit. Don't worry. Just need to do that. Okay. Here. Okay. Okay. Arma. Okay. I need to take this out because, like, these are arguments from a minor. They have no place in an like adult discussion, and like this was before the rules, and now I should be doing that. You get the point. Now let's go back to what we were talking about. Okay. In addition to okay, on the other hand, if we use emotional narrations like antis can distinguish fiction and reality, they can also use it against us in the same way. And actually, in social media, I've seen they actually do this and address that. In short, lollicons are missing the point here, or even bootstrap it to a strawman fallacy. So, the next point of limiting the use of this kind of argument is to limit potential openings which can cause trouble. I agree, yes. What I am aiming to create to most what I'm aiming to is create the most reasonable and clear points, if possible, in most objective and substantive categories as possible to answer accusations and use them instead of purely emotional ones. I think arguments based as much as possible in the domain of facts and as much reasonable as possible. There are also reasons why I think it's beneficial to stay calm and peaceful in discussions while minimizing pissing opponents off, and patiently and calmly, at least to a certain degree where it's beneficial, explaining your points and refute arguments in terms of showing there is no evidence for them and that they are logically wrong, with like limiting emotional impact. In this situation where facts are on our side, this approach is better if done well. Emotional, alarmist, and flashy language has some strength, but calm approach has an even stronger appeal. I agree. But before I continue, I need to drink a bit of water because my throat is like killing me. So we'll continue in a minute. Perfect. Okay. Okay. When I thought about those opposite approaches to discussion, I found an analogy. The difference is like between two strong monsters. One is extremely scary looking, loud, and thoughtlessly uh, destructs everything around them, while the second one does not look that much scary. Has the first one, like it is extremely calm and just calmly goes after its prey and do whatever it wants in the most calm and logically efficient way possible. Just how it planned. Which one seems to be really the stronger and more scary? For me, the second one. Of course, it doesn't prove my point, it's only an analogy to show how I feel about this topic. And I consider this analogy to be applicable here because when you show they have no evidence which to support their accusations, and you refute their like trials to avoid necessity of showing this with because it's obvious self-evident arguments, they are just defenseless. They are just false accusers then. In fact, frequent uses of the phrase it's obvious self-evident shows how much of a desperate position they are. They are even unaware of this, so it's just natural for me to enlighten then that obviousness self-evidence arguments are just wrong here. This is not self-evident because self-evidence appears when some truth comes just from logic of definition. That is not the point here. So this is just wrong. The problem of it's obvious is that if this is obvious, they wouldn't have any problem with providing evidence and reasoning which proves their point. If they don't have this, then the phrase obvious is just an empty word. People in the past said that the earth is flat because it's obvious, and it was simplest explanation for them. Were they right? No. What is obvious and what is not is a matter of intuition, which is prone to cognitive biases and doesn't have objective weight. Okay. That's also a misconception that some people have. Like, obviously, people rejected. What people rejected more actually was the heliocentric like model. Most people knew that like Earth was round even back then, but what people rejected wasn't so much that model. It wasn't so much that the Earth was round. They actually rejected that it wasn't the center of the solar system due to their perspective. The other reason why, the actual reason why people didn't want to like go to the Americas, for example, is not because they thought, oh, there's nothing beyond the horizon, like you're just going to fall into nothingness. No, they just thought, oh, there's nothing there. Like you're either going to starve at best or be consumed by sea monsters at worst. Like that's what the actual problem was. Like just like adding like to that, but like that's a bit off topic, so let's continue. Obviously, it's completely okay and could be very beneficial to add emotional source to argumentation, but it's very important to make those emotional claims as convincing and reasonable as possible. There's also still the problematic matter of that phrases like they are not real world children, they are not real, especially this particular choice of words, because as I understand that, people who say this don't consider lolly in terms of being a child at all, just how I explained earlier in the post. And even if logically this phrase doesn't have such implications, it still suggests that lollies are fictional children, like what shape their perception, even if it's not the point. The matter as to what class of beings lollies are commonly considered in general society is crucial. Some points I've written about here might be more expanded or just deserve to get some dedication. So maybe in some time I'll write some posts about them too. Once again, thanks for your reply. Sorry for the long answer and digressions. Now let's read Sun's response. First, the one that he like added to the chat, and then the one that he added to the comment. To be honest, I agree with Kodoku here. My argument is mostly born from my own weakness. Using sincere arguments in the face of antis is just painful, but probably the right thing to do. Exactly, yeah. It's not really weakness, it's just like kind of being done with it. Like, obviously, recently I found a different reason why argumentation is good, exactly because like it addresses it's not the point is not to change the perspective of the person you're arguing with, it's to convince like the neutral people around you. So recently I was convinced of like their purpose, like their importance, but before I just saw how like impossible to like convince, impossible to argue with and have a meaningful and genuine discussion it was to like with antis. And like I was just tired. I just said no, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore, like I'm done. But that's absolutely not the attitude you should have. Like now I understand that. Okay. Sun's response. Oh, here is my emo bangs bullied kid anime MC monologue. Oh, okay. Honestly, I do think your way is correct. If you are able to remain calm and clearly show the flaws in your opponent's arguments every time, it would be most effective. But it's seriously hard to do that. Remaining calm is hard when the opponent is accusing you of the worst possible label, like a gun is being pointed at you. It's hard to stick to principled arguments when when you know the opponent is using every dirty trick in the book. The opponent is just lazily calling names and making things up. So why do I have to go to the effort of doing research to prove them wrong? That's what it feels like. Again, I understand that. Like it's absolutely not the attitude like you should have, but I don't think it's unreasonable to get to that point. I don't think most people would I think most people understand like what it's like to be in this situation, like what it's like to have tried a lot and see no benefit from it and just losing kind of your drive to continue. It's exactly like the objective of antis is to tire you out so much that like you just lose the will to continue. And so this attitude I think is understandable even if it's the wrong one, obviously. So I don't think it's like bullied kid anime MC monologue necessarily. But anyway, uh, you get so tired after having to do this several times. Meanwhile, you're getting flamed and ignored. And finally, it's hard to go about it in a calm way when you're witnessing the tourists suddenly infesting your space and trying to make up false history, change the culture and rules, reporting your artwork to get it banned, etc. Like the fucking Vikings invading the shores of Britain. Okay, that is a bit over dramatic, yeah. I can't argue with level head. I have an overwhelming urge to say my true feelings about these unreasonable, delusional Philistine brats, which would probably get my comments removed. To be specific, I'm literally describing what happened in the Toho subreddit, in which tourist Zoomers suddenly appeared, began to make false claims out of nowhere, such as Toho used to be wholesome. Artists are now trying to introduce porn. God, they fucking spend Toho porn and like
It was
sexualizing
from the
Toho
start.
characters it's almost a decade old. Like what do you mean like it used to be wholesome but now it's bad? It's been bad for years now, you fucking anyway. Sorry, you want to add something?
It was Toho doujins were from nearly from the start.
Yes, exactly. But anyway,
Mm,
and even reported one of my drawings and got it banned. I probably wouldn't be able to calmly engage with these people, so I've taken to just leaving them alone. A decade old, it's since the early 2000s. It's 2.5 decades old. Damn, it's even older than I thought. Jesus Christ. So yeah,
do
these
you feel
rumors
old?
really don't have a point at all. Just, sorry, what?
Do you feel old?
Yeah, we all do. Well, I fucking do. But anyway. Honestly, I wish I had the energy and strength to battle them correctly. I should really be defending my hobby, it's just rather a hopeless feeling, like being one man against the entire Viking horde. Again, a bit over dramatic, but I get it. Isn't the whole Route 34 like the first thing on the internet to exist, Lama? It's not the first thing, but it's definitely one of the first, yes.
Internet was born from Reimu armpits.
Exactly, yes. Unironically, yes. Yes, I know how you feel. Honestly, because of all those things, I mean, online dramas, articles, social media, arguments, seeing hate to people in the same hobby, cases of allegation towards me online. I draw in one drama about one of my drawings, even allegation towards me in real life by one of my close ones. I get some kind of strong trauma because of this. Paradoxically, it gives me more determination. They just done too much harm to my mentality to just let it go, but I still want to do it in a peaceful way. But I know that people react in different ways, so your attitude is completely understandable to me. But it's seriously hard to do that. Remaining calm is hard when the opponent is accusing you of the worst possible label, like a gun is being pointed to you. I agree when we are talking about real time discussions in person. They are the thing I want to and recommend to avoid at all costs. Fortunately, when we're speaking about communication mediums, when you have the time to calm down and like think like posts, forums, comments, written essays, video essays, it's much easier to be calm than in real life. Probably it would be extremely hard for me to form and present arguments, especially when someone is pointing me out, calling me a pedophile, and shouting at me with nonsense just to not let me say a word. But in non-real time mediums, I can do a lot. Extremely smaller amount of pressure and nearly unlimited time to create a message. Additionally, with my current knowledge, I know I don't even need much time uh, to just type the keyboard to present arguments. Well, I try to avoid more direct confrontation with entities from my main accounts because it's a risk of being cancelled, though I still argue in a more soft way, pretending I'm just an uninterested observer who just speaks facts that's pretty effective with a good choice of words. Had some discussions and some comments because of my confidence in the discussed matter and having prepared an answer for everything. Honestly, I feel like the Doomslayer. Cringe, cringe. Jesus Christ. I get, I get like your point here, but could you have described it
Yes,
in
I
a
know
less
this
cringe
it
way?
could be
Like Jesus
cringe,
Christ.
but this is a little bit accurate.
Again, I get your point, but you could have described that in a less cringe way. But anyway, the thing about the Toho community is funny for me too. I just checked one doujin site and already in 2007 they were posted doujins from Toho. The oldest I found on this site was from 8th of April of 2007 with Patchy. Patchy was the first to get a doujin. That's surprising. Doujins and other Arrow stuff from Toho probably were present just from the moment Toho got popular. I heard once that Sakura's design is based on one character from some Arrow work, but I'm not sure about it. Yeah, Zoom copied numerous works for his poses and character designs, up to around Toho 6. Some of the PC98 characters are literally just clones of existing characters. Ellen, who even shares the name of the existing character, while others like Sakura, Ia take elements from multiple characters. Some of these works had a lot of fan service, and one was Rance, if I recall correctly. So, yeah, it was literally there from the beginning. I think the fact about the lack of evidence for real world harm of lolly con should be repeated over and over again too, even if people will be bored of it. Okay. And then James responded. Said it better than I could. In truth, they behave in prostate as though they can't make the distinction, so why does it matter if they really believe it or not? It's the weapon they use, all the same, and deserves to be called out regardless, yes. Honestly, from my personal perspective, for example, just to not piss them off too much, for example, to not encourage them to bomb and mass report my social media accounts just because they can and don't like me. Of course, they can do this regardless, but I think in terms of what I can do, to what I want to do and still minimizing the risk of massive outrage. I think not insulting them, even if they insult me, is a good first step. Yes, you are very like reasonable and rational in this regard. Uh, anyway, let me read some comments before I continue. It's funny how if you go to the beginning of any artist history on Pixiv, there's like a more than 50% chance they started out drawing Toho. Kodoko has mastered the light side of the force. He probably has a green light set. Good one. I mean, saying anime characters don't look like photoreal humans is kind of a known point, like no shit, but they are still people. They exist in human society, speaking human languages, and are marketed towards humans. Furries don't look like people either, plenty of Western cartoon characters as well. You can't say, well, little kids don't look like lollies in real life, so it's not the same. When lolly dojins have them say their ages, elementary and middle school ages, of course, and wearing typical kids' clothes. I just feel like a lot of other lolicons are very inauthentic. Now, are all lolicons pedophiles? I don't think so. I myself enjoy lolly. It's more about body shape and stuff like that. But like, come on, bro. Go to any site with a lolly tag and you see underage uh children. Are they photoreal? No, but that's a stupid question. And there's a stupid argument. let me go through this from the beginning. They are still people. They exist in human societies. No, like the society in anime works nothing like the ones in like real life. So much so that there is an entire like it's not a series. It's a type of video. That is essentially like Japan is not like anime. So you're just wrong on that regard. First off, and they speak human languages. Debatable, since like again the way anime characters speak is very exaggerated. It's very dissimilar to how actual people speak. Uh, and they speak human language. Okay, and they are marketed towards humans. Again, like this is a known point. Like what is even anyway? This is a known point. Anyway, you can't say, well, little kids don't look like lollies in real life, so it's not the same. When lolly dojins have then say their ages, again, what the age of a fictional character means, it's very different from what the age of an actual person like means. Like maybe it is an allusion to it, but it's so far disconnected when like they don't act like children and are in situations that like children are not into it. It's just fucking whatever. You get the point. And wearing typical kids clothes. Like if you think any like why do you think they call it cosplay? Like even when people like wear casual fits from anime, it's called cosplay because yeah, anime characters in general, not just lollies, don't dress up like real
Maybe
kids.
by kids' clothes he means school uniforms.
But that's the thing I was talking about. The school uniforms in anime don't resemble the ones that actual Japanese
I
like
think
students
he may
use.
refer to problem of coding.
Oh,
Mm.
but coding is just bullshit. Like I'm not even going to engage that seriously. Like if you actually believe in like coding, then like we just go like all the way
I
into
also,
the
I
games are violent
also think
arguments.
I also think that coding is not a good argument, but it is something that still have to be addressed. Not now, but in general.
Again, we could address that. Like there are various reasons why like this coding like thing is bullshit, but like it would be take like a bit too long. Like and it's outside the scope of this. So for now we're just going to say like it's bullshit. But anyway, uh typical kids clothes, absolutely not. I just feel like a lot of other lolicons are very inauthentic. That's because you're a fucking delusional idiot. Anyway, like okay, yeah, there's whole arguments
What
too.
does it mean? I was confused what he mean by inauthentic, and the only thing which came to my mind that he thinks that lolicons are just pretend to be interested only in lollies and are in fact PDFs.
No, no. Like when they say inauthentic, like they just use arguments that like uh they either don't believe in or like arguments that they know like don't have any logic to them. Like he was saying, oh, of course, like they aren't photorealistic children, but by using that argument, like you're missing the point or you're intentionally missing the point in order to make the person making the argument seem like more stupid than they actually are, or the arguments that you're using that there is so much separation, they're not honest. You know that there isn't that much separation, but you're pretending like it does because like it makes you look better. So it's not necessarily that he's saying, oh no, like you are actual pedophile. He's saying that you're arguing in bad faith, That's what he means by inauthentic. It's like you're making purposefully bad arguments like to seem better. It's essentially accusing us of doing what the antis are doing, of using emotional arguments to like convince people, you know? Kodokunasu?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Now, before I get to your response, which is quite long, I want to address some of the comments. That comment is missing the point completely. Yes, human this, human that. Anti-tourists do all this just for false virtue. All they care about is internet clout and feeling superior. Exactly. Welcome to the string explosion, lolly, and you like nailed the point home perfectly. Okay, not. Yeah, the Sun is right in that this whole argument has like huge. Oh, I'm not like other lolicons energy. Yes, and let's report all fictional criminals because they're just like real criminals. Oh, let's also donate to lollies for charity since they're just like real victims, right? Yeah, just pointing out the like absurdity of this. Well, when someone kills a fictional character, they unalive them for real. They're fictional, but they really done actions which lead to unalive the character. Yeah, you're just being facetious here. Before I address this, let's see how long this is.
It is long from what I remember.
Jesus Christmas Christ. Okay, before I get into that, let's get into something a bit more easy, like Mika Mundis.
It has two parts because I was unable to fit myself in my one comment.
Look, I get it, but Jesus Christ, let me go through some like easier to address stuff before I
I
tackle that.
wasn't
Okay,
joking when I told I am a doomslayer.
mucho texto, exactly. Kodoko, when I unalive the pixel by using the erase brush delete button. Lol. Like the other comment pointed out, using logic and calm demeanor will win in the long run. That's what I was saying. But unfortunately, social media will reward short, aggressive, emotional outbursts rather than the former. And antis definitely use this for their advantage. Like the other comment said, one side is fighting with fair terms, but the other side will fight and hurl all of the dirty tricks, shits, and such just to win. It's kind of hard to win in that regard. Like we know we definitely win in terms of logic, but definitely not on loudness or emotions. The only way to somewhat counter these things and improve our chances at winning, besides time, is somehow be able to come with a simple enough thought that can be used to counter those simple arguments that they always use. We've been doing that through the stream, so we've been proving that you can do that. So far, in most arguments I read, most of the time the logical community just has a hard time explaining it properly without it being paragraphs upon paragraphs. Kodokunasu, this is addressing you. When the other side could just say the pedophile is yapping and be done with it. And yes, it's definitely very frustrating in most cases, but that's just the nature of internet arguments, to be honest. Because in real life, I would bet that most people just don't care enough about lollies and stuff. It's just in the internet being very loud, anonymous have allowed people to essentially talk shit and don't have to feel any real life consequences from it. I get your points, but regarding how lolicon side discussion argue, I still see ways of improvement. After all, everything I can do is my best, and this is much better than doing nothing and falling into pessimism and giving up. I still see things which can be done better, and the more reasonable our points will be. One sec. Okay. The more reasonable our points will be, the more unreasonable their position will begin to be in the light of incoherent problems of their position. Also, it's important to make our points as visible as possible. What I mean is that the arguments about lack of evidence are present, but too rare. They should be present notoriously in the discussion, not only from time to time, because this is exactly what makes antis hypocritical, paranoid, and irrational ones. I'm discussing in discussion, I'm doing my best to convince people I'm talking with, but not to convince particularly them because it may be impossible, but mainly those who see the discussion. So, yeah, just reinforcing what you said before. Nyankers. You're right in that they often can distinguish fiction from reality, but it's kinder to assume they can't. Because if they can, they choose to prioritize the imaginary feelings of fictional characters over real people. This is not a morally superior stance, this is insane. And if they cannot, they're still insane, but at least they're also not also evil. I just assume the strongest possible position I know about or can imagine. I assume that they think that they separate fiction from reality, but it still bothers them because they think it normalizes real world harmful behaviors and develops harmful preferences, and I respond to this point by default. If it will appear they have a different take, I adjust my argumentation for their case. Okay, so we have now, again, all this was just reinforcing things you already said, and now we'll address Aphasia's and Hangry's point. First, Hangry's, because Aphasia's is also kind of mucho texto. It's a very insightful thread about this topic, and many people here bring up a lot of good points. I do think that lolicons often make themselves appear like a clear target to be bullied, which can stifle actually getting through Anti's trademark attack, never ask questions later defense. I liked your idea of using another account that appears to be an uninterested bystander so that the discourse cannot be framed in an emotional and hostile way that appeals to the anti tactics and arguments. To be fair, this can also be seen as kind of a dishonest tactic. So, like, I get your point, but I wouldn't rely on it too much either. This way, it's far easier to dismantle than logically, very casually, and without any tension or perceived biases that they might default to claim. This way, they cannot resort to simply demonizing you and will be forced to either engage with the logic or tuck tail and run away, which is what most do, yes. In the case that they do try to attack you, it makes them appear like senseless children throwing a tantrum. Again, I do get the advantages of this, but it's always better to be honest and rational in the long term than to be dishonest and irrational. Again, in the short term, it can lead to better results, but in the long term, like we were discussing, rationality and like honesty are better. So I would advise against using this too much. Now to Efficius, mucho texto, and then to Kodokunasu's mucho texto. You're right. Every time when someone says something about lollies, it's in emotional and moral sense. They don't care if it's fiction. Fact that the lolly is young is enough to worry. Point the hypocrite, brutal games don't cause violence doesn't work either, because it's different for them. Using simple the history of humankind or something in the sense that it should be obvious for everyone. Even if they agree it's hypocritical, the lollies are the exception. I think the problem is some people treat it like it's porn addiction, in the sense it would not stop on this. Like, it absolutely does, but whatever. I remember the video. Anyway, I remember the video. It was not about lollies, but it was brought up where the person said something along the lines of "it never ends on the fiction." In case of that person, they are hypocrite because before this statement they said they shouldn't be banned. You can probably guess why this contradicts the other. It doesn't help in between those they interchangeably say it's weird, which most lolicon are fine with this take, and it's diet pedophile like. Yeah, I think what Fisher is essentially saying is that we should have arguments beyond that because they can counter that argument. So we should have arguments to counter their counters, their subsequent points that they can and do utilize. So yes, Fisher does have a good point here to like complement yours. Yeah. Anyway, the worst part was saying that Vosh was advocating for. Anyway, that's a whole situation. Like what he always called lolicons pedos. Like yeah, they're literally rewriting history there. And it's a good like Vosh is a good example of this because I was arguing with
Vosh.
Kodokunasu late before that there is a clear separation between like pedophilic attraction and like lolicon attraction. It's not even like that they're related, they're close cousins. No, they're completely unrelated from one another. So much so that people who like argue from for like uh pro child pornography, which Vosh does. He did like literally say that like actual like CP should be legalized in one of his streams. He is very much against lolicon and various like other personalities too. Like for example, uh like that dude, I can't remember his name, the one about the cupcakes. He also is like very anti-lolly despite being a pedophile. There's that guy that's Vice interviewed that literally said that lolicon causes pedophilia. Well, he himself was a pedophile that was anti-lolly. It's again, it's just showing that again, this and various other cases which can point out show that a lot of the time like those attractions are completely divorced to the point where someone can be a lolicon while hating pedophiles and someone can be a pedophile while hating lolicons. So yeah, this is a very good example. uh the only thing he advocated was IRL CSAM. The only thing why people would think that was the folder incident. But the problem is if he was advocating for lollies, he wouldn't say, I thought they were goblins excuse. Like, they wanted to claim that your movie sucks. He was the main subject of the video. Vosh shot the same, defending immoral stuff, and it's simply false. Yes, because Vosh is a hypocrite who like attacked lolicons while having like lolicon, but arguing that it isn't lolicon and actually arguing pro actual CP. So yes, this like equivalency is false. Yes. Let me continue. Blah blah blah. Your movie sucks guy was trying to justify animal consent. Ooh, I almost gagged. Volsh was denying it was lollies in the folder. They are not the same. Absolutely, yes. The point is, they don't want to listen to the other side. Sure, there are exceptions like the ex-friend of the guy who sounds like Cartman from South Park in the Twitter space, but he wanted to listen. At the end of it, he still doesn't like lollies, but the fact he sits down and has a civil conversation about this topic was truly beautiful. I don't want to be that guy, but lolly debate will stay forever. There's nothing we can do about it. Yes, but again, the main point is not to convince like the people arguing against lolicon, it's to convince the people around the discussion, the neutral parties. That's why these discussions are important. Okay. Lolly Dojin, but if you get arrested in the game, you get arrested in real life. Lolly art online. A good one. Yeah. But now I will like address Kodokunasu's like big ass response to Charlie. But before that, I am going like to resolve something. Be right back.
Mm.
Okay, I'm back, and apparently, like Big Pew, like was able to enter the stream. So I'm going to assume, like in good faith, that due to him actually being like 18 now, even if he like became 18 very recently, that's why YouTube is allowing him to stay, because the stream is like marked for adults only. So I'm going to be very good faith and let him stay, but I'm still not too comfortable with this personally. But yeah, welcome to the stream. And Owe has to take on a challenger in the street fights. Come on, not even I'm able to like do that this fast, you know. But yeah, unfortunately, you missed out a lot, Big Pew. But I think you'll still be able to like kind of understand the points, because we are going to address now a very like big and complete comment. So you should get the gist of what we were discussing. But anyway.
Um, Luis, I have a question. Could you discuss some other things for 5 minutes? I will be back in 5 or 10 minutes, okay?
Okay. So like discuss something else while you're gone.
Yes, yes. Maybe some comments are still there, some shorter ones, or something in general
Okay. Okay.
around the
You can
topic.
go. You can go. Don't worry.
Something important to do for a few minutes.
Okay. So we're going to have to wait for him, guys. And what
Okay.
and while we do, let's have a much more important discussion. Like, which Dragon Maid girl is your favorite? No, you know what? Fuck that. Let's make a list. Like, this is a ranking stream now. Like, let's rank the Dragon Maid girls from worst to best. Okay. To me, deciding on a number worst is very difficult because I love all these characters. Oh wait, have you watched something interesting? Mm, I haven't had time to do much of anything like outside the channel these days. Uh, in terms of like interesting things, most of what I watch is like YouTube stuff. Uh, in that sense, I've been watching a lot of, and this will sound weird, but like I've been watching a lot of like Five Nights at Freddy's content, specifically some challenge runs, because like they generally explain how the game works, and I never knew like that Five Nights at Freddy's of all games had such a complex, not really complex, but very interesting framework. to like make the games function. So yeah, that has been like quite interesting. It's just that it's really difficult for me to, because I don't have the time to just watch anime nowadays. I have to watch anime and do something else. And like to do that, like doing that is a lot more difficult than like how do I say it? Than watching a video while doing something else, you know? So generally like I can't watch anime while doing something else, so I'd have to rely on the videos. Exactly because it makes me way more tired than I can afford to be. Oh, that's surprising. I didn't expect you to be into Five Nights at Freddy's. I do think the game's lore is very interesting. I don't play like the games, but I do like to like understand how they work. I think there's a lot more artistry. Like I think Scott Cawthon deserves a lot more credit than he really gets, and I do think like FNF in general, in terms of story and how the game is done, etc., is a lot more interesting than people give it credit for. It's no masterpiece, but yeah, I like it as an outside observer. You know. I have a friend that watches anime while doing other things and he never knows or remember anything from the anime he watched. I can't do that. Like exactly because like I think a Fisher will be able to relate to that. It's very difficult. Like I can't just turn my brain off while watching anime. Like that's why I said that like those anime discussions that I have with you guys is just me turning on the camera. It's just doing the stuff I do even while the camera is not turned on, because while watching anime I'll frequently pause, I'll frequently like think about like what happened and like how they did something well or how they could have done something better. I can't watch anything, much less anime, with my brain like truly turned off like I can with like videos, for example. So yeah, that's the point. But coming back to this, in regards to a list, if I had to choose like less like the least good out of all these characters, unfortunately, I have to give it to God damn it, I'm not remembering her name right now. Like um to the redhead dragon, right? Because like her story and her scenes were definitely like the least memorable ones. Like I was saying to people, like Dragon Maid season 2 was not as good as Dragon Maid season 1. But it's like comparing like silver to gold. Like sure, it's not as valuable, but shut the fuck up. So it's not that I dislike her, but she certainly like her story certainly uh has a bit less quality and is a bit less memorable than the other ones. She, in general, is a less memorable and less well written character than the other, like dragons and people in the story. Uh, Next up, the next spot will be kind of a toss up between like Lukoa and like God, I'm forgetting so many names, and like the black hair dragon. I do prefer, like ever so slightly, the black hair dragon's design. Uh, but in general, her story is like a lot more boring. She isn't really a boring character, but she is a lot more plain, a lot more of a usual story than like a Shoda molester over here. You know. Also, wait a second. Uh, Mainstream anime. How did you get into the stream? Like, no jokes, no giggles. Now I know who you actually are. Like, this is specifically uh non-safe for work string. Like, I know that you're a minor, so you really can't be here. Like, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And if not, I'm going to actually have to ban you. Like, please, like, I'm giving you a warning here. Okay? I don't know how you got into the stream, but please, like, leave. This is not an appropriate string for you. But anyway, like, let's see this. Okay, Kana. I love sleepy kuderes. Kana is better than everyone else. Like, next question, Lo. I mean, yes, Kana is obviously going to win this, but like, we are trying to judge the other characters in relation to each other too. I'm not gonna lie, I watched the new season of Dragon Maid, saw her, and immediately tapped out. I'm not a Puritan, it was just a mood killer. I also want to know why Pew. I don't get why it would be. But anyway. Oh wait, YouTube used AI to determine my account as a child and still let me here, so just so you know. Why do I even bother? I literally set the string as for adults only. YouTube, why do your most basic systems don't work? Why are you like this? I literally put in the option to fuck.
Hello, I'm back.
Okay, so we have to finish the list later. Hey Fisher, I don't know, I just do not like the Opie Lolly archetype. Also, I wasn't just too interested in.
Obscure animalist?
God damn it. Anyway, also, I just wasn't too interested in the new season in the first place. I understand, but like, I'm going to have to call you out, Big Pew, on having like shit taste. I'm glad it doesn't work because it would have shut me out otherwise. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's continue. Why did I even do this? I'm going to earn like less money. The string is going to be put to like share to less people, and for what? For minors to still be able to enter it. Like, why did I do this? Like, what was the point?
To cut off your riches.
I fucking hate YouTube sometimes, I swear. Anyway, moving on. First, I appreciate your
Currently,
answer, and I think I understand your point. I could summarize it as it doesn't matter that lollies aren't photorealistic kids because they're still representations of kids in fiction. At least assuming we are talking about lollies indulging illustrations, some work where they are, for example, in situations, clothes, or stated age of preschool. If I misunderstood your point, then please tell me. No, you did not. Before I
mm,
answer to this argument, I want to address in some places of your answer. I see problems with some of the phrases. I see problems I want to point out. I understand you could mean something else. You could have something else in mind, and I may get them too literally, but I still want to tell what problems I have with them. So you can't say, well, little kids don't look like lollies in real life, so it's not the same when dojins have them say their ages and wearing typical kids clothes. I think that I still can, especially in exact terms of they are not the same. I mean, just like characters in video games you're killing are not the same as real people, even if they are photorealistic and are shown as civilian people who lead peaceful life in a fictional world. Also, they are not the same in terms of fiction and reality. It's not the same. Fictional people, not the same as real people, no matter how you look at it. I mean, it depends on the perspective. You speak from the perspective of how you and probably most people perceive and interpret presented fiction. When I speak, they are not kids because they aren't. 1 second. uh, because they aren't looking like kids. I speak about objective truth. I mean, non subjective truth. I mean, truth which stays the same regardless of how anyone feels and whatever anyone thinks about this. Because thoughts, feelings, interpretations, and other things Uh, are inherently subjective. Objectively, you have no kids who have even close facial proportions in the real world, so they are not the same. If you had living beings in the real world with proportions like anime lollies and anime didn't exist, people would think that this is an alien, mutant, or some other strange species. What is funny is about those small, extremely slim lollies have similar body proportions to gray aliens. If you see kids, adults, and lollies, and you try to measure in any way facial features, no matter, they often also have apparently different body proportions than the average kid of corresponding age. Taking those things into consideration, plus the art style shading used in manga, is much different than how light reflects from surfaces in our world, and in the end creates objectively a photo of kid and drawing of L is objectively a different thing. It is completely different stimulus to the brain. If you show this to the alien, it will be completely different for them. We can look at them and say, like, this is a kid, only from the interpreted context of the presented stories and our shape perception that if something is small, then it is a kid, which by itself is a, like, bad, like, standard. But anyway, and one that actually can negatively affect the real world. But anyway, uh, uh, if someone has a red school bag and uniform, then this is an elementary schooler. But this is all from our shape perception and context of the real world. Also, if you can draw a photorealistic adult woman, but with elementary school uniform and school bag presented in a story that they are elementary schoolers who go to an elementary school and generally lead elementary schooler life, we can tell that in this story they are elementary schoolers. Of course, but would you say that they are the same as real kids? Both presented looks are not realistically resembling children, then we can say they look like children, period. No matter what plot you show. Now, we could discuss if photorealistic adult woman picture is more or less similar to photorealistic kid than lolly, but it's counterproductive. Both things are completely different visual form and different visual stimulus. And this is like made even more apparent by those movies where they cast like 30-year-olds to play like teenagers, right? Like yeah, they are playing teenagers, but let's be real, they do that specifically not to sexualize real kids, which is a good thing. And like lolly is basically the same thing, but like it's a different execution of that same thing. They want to portray like this kind of setting. Like with anime is different because like it's much more different to reality than the usual like photorealistic film, but it's essentially representing like in that sense. Like I don't know if I can make myself understand. I hope I'm coming across like clearly that they are representing characters which are supposed to like, oh god, why do I keep forgetting this? God damn it. Uh, they're supposed to represent things that like are harmful to sexualize in real life, but you want to sexualize them, and so like obviously you're going to use like a representation that doesn't harm actual children. Like again, I know this was very confusing, but I hope like you can like understand the point I'm trying to make here, that this is like interesting like added point to the argument, you know but anyway, before I go, like Uh, I like to address some comments. Let's protect the children. Amazing. $1 million company name. How are you gonna do it? ID identification, analyzed by AI on top of that. And AI modding, of course. Also, regarding the bad tasting, I don't know how to explain this without being puritanical, but if I wanted to see big tits, I would see them on a non-lolly character. The contrast takes me out of it. No, again, I'm like joking with you, Big Pew, So don't worry, like it's all just like a joke. I understand that different people can have different like tastes, but like yeah, I just don't agree. I'm not the biggest Topiloli guy, but I can see the appeal. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't like Ten. I just don't like Ten with a passion. Fair, fair. By the way, text isn't on screen, now it is. That fiction doesn't affect reality, and the whole lolly argument is easier to explain to a normie because a lot of them like to watch Netflix shows based on a high school, where the high schoolers aim for makeouts, despite the actors being in their 30s. Oh, okay. You're saying that this is easier to explain than this because most of them don't watch lolly anime, but they watch like the Netflix shows. But that's exactly my point. You can use something that they're familiar with to explain like the logic behind why if that isn't wrong, then this isn't wrong either. That's my point. But moving on. Here's one thought experiment that I invented, but please treat it with a grain of salt, since this is only a thought experiment and I don't consider it as an argument. But maybe it will make my mindset more understandable for you. So maybe not to the extent, but this is a similar to showing someone a screenshot from Minecraft, depicting a sheep and a photo of a real sheep. If we know what a sheep is and what Minecraft is, then we know that Minecraft sheep is a sheep. But for example, if we go to the place of the world where nobody knows about any sheeps, I mean, nobody has seen any sheep in their lifetime, and we show to those guys both pictures of real sheep and a screen of Minecraft sheep, we ask if those are the same thing as the other. I can't prove it for now, but I strongly believe that this guy, after seeing this, will look at us with a confused expression because he will see two pictures, one with some unknown animal, the second with what the fuck, like what is this? Say obviously they are not the same thing. He will say that we are mocking him when we say that no, they are exactly the same. This thing is a sheep, and this is a sheep, just only fictional and non-realistic. Objectively, the Minecraft sheep is not a sheep. First of all, it doesn't exist. Also, the Minecraft sheep doesn't look like a real sheep. We can say it only when we know about sheeps and have seen some of them and know Minecraft stylistic convention. And additionally, someone told us that this is a Minecraft sheep. Then we can say, yes, of course, the strange rectangle based entity is the representation of a sheep, similar to some extent to the sheep in the stylistic manner. Also, objectively, drawings of lollies is not drawing of a kid. Again, very good argument there. The fact that is that just how I told you, I told you can differentiate any lolly from a kid with 100% accuracy. They are objectively, visually that much different. It's completely unlikely that you ever be unsure which is which. I know it may sound like plain dumb when there's a small character wearing kids' clothes and go to elementary school in fiction and say, oh, it's subjective, this is a kid or not. It's not my point here. My point is that they are objectively don't look like kids in terms of there is no kid who is close in the terms of visual experience to those characters. Aside to how those fictional characters look like, do you treat unalivening a fictional character the same as unalivening a real human being just because it has similar traits and the plot shows that those characters as people? The funny thing about law in most countries is that there where particular crimes are described, there is no mention about it if this is about fictional or real unalivening or real or fictional murder. Even if there is nowhere in the law described, it is only for real world actions or also fictional. In theory, when you commit unalivening of a human in a game, well, you have a fictional character which you can interpret as a human, and even game tell you that this is a human, and you do intentional action which has the result in a situation which looks like murdering a person, and if the game tells you about it and or increase your like killing counter, then well, you committed fictional murder. This is the same thing as real, only just fictional. Depends on the jurisdiction and how law works there, but even if there is no defined like that fictional acts are not those particular crimes, even if we match the exact definition, you could interpret them in an appropriate way. Nowhere in the world court will find you guilty of such a crime, no matter what this crime is. Obviously, we shouldn't punish anyone for committing crimes in fictional worlds on fictional beings, because this is harmless. The aspect of depiction of minors in we know which situations is the only cause when anyone starts to think, oh, we should treat fictional minors the same way and treat fictional characters under the age of 18 in the story as minors. For me, of course, if this is not a realistic, identifiable depiction of a minor, which can traumatize this minor of her family, and more so over this is even not close to how a minor looks like in the world, those laws shouldn't be interpreted this way, because this is as much harmless like murdering a fictional character or committing any kind of other kind of crime on fictional beings and things in fictional world. Some people say something about the sexualization, glorification, objectification, blah blah blah. But as long as there is no scientific evidence that is really the thing, what is funny, philosophers and activists who talk about sexualization and stuff don't bother themselves in proving it's really the thing. They just assume this is the truth. Yeah, unfortunately, like if you go look at the actual like I think you can even show this to them later, but if you go and look at a lot of the actual uh studies about like the objectification of women and stuff like that, they just assume that a lot of these things are true. They don't even try to prove. They just say, oh, it's true, and we're going to like base the rest of this on the assumption that it is true. Like I understand that in the sciences to some extent you kind of need to do that, but this is kind of like you do that for to make things easier to understand, but you still have the burden to prove it later, to like, oh, okay, I assume this in order to like make this easier to comprehend, but like after I do that I actually need to go there and prove that the thing I assumed is true, you know. So yeah, this is no excuse. But continuing on, in any different place, we don't think about it this way. Why is murdering a fictional human is not the same as murdering a real one? Someone might argue that because this is about real depictions when actions in games are fiction. For me, this is wrong, because when you play the game, you play the game for real. You commit actions in game for real, and you commit actions which intentionally lead to the murdering of fictional characters. So those actions are also real. You as a human being in our world do different things than people would do to murder real people, but still objectively you perform actions which objectively lead to the murder uh, of this fictional but still a human, because this is defined and presented by human. We think about this with the same logic like depictions of minors, particularly fictional. I think it's all what I have to tell you about my mindset for now. A lot of lolicons are very inauthentic. By inauthentic, do you mean that they're pedophiles? I think we both are similar types. I particularly like lollies as just cute, stylized mini woman, and I don't like this all this edgy stuff which is added to them. I would like lollies to be in most or all cases to be just cute, stylized short women who are adults without any edgy tropes. He's like me in like to clarify. Kodokunasu is like me in that he prefers like legal lollies, but unlike me, who can enjoy the illegal lollies too, he can't. Like I think it even said that to enjoy Blue Archive, you kind of have to use
Mm,
like
about I
like
have
no, you can explain
about
yourself.
Blue Archive, it is they okay, they have stated age of they have some magic numbers in on the wiki, but they don't they don't lead they life they lead is really more similar to university student, or even not close to this. What they do in fiction is completely abstracted from how what teenagers do in real life, and don't look like that.
Mhm.
I have even my mm, I have in my mind that this is not important.
It's
Mm,
your fan canon essentially that you use to
yes,
be
yes,
able
yes.
to enjoy it. Yes. So yes, we are different in the sense that I prefer it, while he can only enjoy that, like that aspect of it. So that's what I was trying to like kind of make clear. But anyway, but I still don't like the perspective of stigmatizing, punishing, and generally harming people who don't harm anyone. Because as long as there is no proof for that they're causing harm and damage to society, I assume they're harmless because the assumption of no hypothesis and presumption of innocence. Also, I just don't like hypocrisy. Also, I just don't like people who harm the others just because they want and or are disgusted of them. Also, there's the aspect that other people will treat me the same as any other lolicon after all. Like, what's currently the perspective is being treated as a pedophile. So, oh well. Honestly, just like I don't care why some people like to look at Mortal Kombat fatality animations without judging them as potential psychotic murderers, the same way I don't care why some people like those lolly dungeons with edgy tropes and don't assume they're pedophiles. Sorry for making it too long. You definitely did. Thanks if you read this as a whole. And if you have any counter arguments to my argumentation, please tell me, just in case those removed replies appear because I accidentally pressed. Okay. And with that, I think we like tackled. Uh, yeah, I think we tackled mostly everything. So yeah, I think unless someone else wants to add to that, or to add to the discussion, or Kodokunasu himself wants to, we're going to end stream. I'm going to wait for a bit to see if people, like anyone wants to, and then I'll end it for today.
Mm, I think I think I haven't anything to add. Mm, maybe if you have something to discuss, then we can. But I think that um, I exhausted the topic in those comments. Mm,
Okay, so I'm going to wait for another minute for people to like type out something, and if not, then I'm just going to end stream for today. So, did you like this type of stream, Kodokunasu? Would you like to participate again? When slash if I do cover the other like wall of text that you posted?
mm, I it was great.
So if I
Mm,
want to like tackle the extra post, the other post that you made on the subject, would you
yes,
like to
yes, feel
participate?
free.
What?
Yes, yes, I would. I
Okay,
would.
okay, okay. It was a fruitful conversation. Okay, 15 seconds. Uh, oh, actually, I didn't like get your opinion on this. Like, which of these characters from Dragon Maid is your favorite, Kodokunasu?
It might be surprising, but
Hmm.
Kobayashi.
No, I figured you would like her. Like most people like her, including me. Like she is definitely like one of the best characters in the anime. But yeah, for
Well,
now,
mm,
thank you all for watching.